Well, hello there. Blairlogie's old kirk and a beautiful stone gateway leading into the burial ground around it. And I've got some raspberries here. Not sure if you can see them. Yeah. Something about wild raspberries grown at the side of the road. So much sweeter than what you can buy in the supermarket. And they're free. Today it's a short walk up onto the lower slopes of heading towards the Myatt, but we're not going up the top of the hill. We're just going to go through woodland to a crag and a viewpoint that will give you awesome views of the Wallace Monument and towards the castle at Stirling. Then we'll head, come out of the woodland onto the open hill. There's a seat there, and we'll stop and I'll tell you all about my camera. That'll be exciting, won't it? My new camera. Yeah, there's a major flaw with this camera. I'll tell you what it is and I'll give you a solution to sort it. You know, when you buy a camera, you shouldn't have to come up with solutions to issues that should have been sorted at the design stage. I don't have anything to eat with me today. I forgot to buy anything, but you know, it's early. I don't need anything to eat. Be down in Bridge of Ireland in plenty of time to buy something and not die of hunger. So I think that's essentially it. You may recognise this. I mean, I probably done this same video before, from Blairlogie's old kirk onto the lower slopes of the Myatt, onto the Sheriffview Road, past Pendreich and down at the Bridge of Allen. But as I've said before, you know, you could do the same walk every day for a year and it would always be different, never be the same. And I could make a video of that walk every day for a year and every video would be different. But you know, it's been a few years since I made that video. I'm a bit older now. The hills are a wee bit older. The stone arch behind me is a wee bit older. The clouds, I think they're probably younger. But we're all getting old, you know. So we better be going before we drop down dead.
Distance dark within the near. The streets are silent, the days beyond the storm. We venture out with big wide eyes, we bring it home. Beyond the guard, the curtain avenues of dread, where nothing moves but cleaners, no one rising dead. The birds they talk in treetops, still they sing the song. Where are all the humans in these days so very long?
Well, we're up on top of that crag now, and as you can see, pretty awesome views towards the Wallace Monument and all the kind of flat cars around the River Forth on the southern face of the local hills here. It's stunning stuff. We've got a very humid day. Weather's been, we're just coming out of a heat wave. It's still very hot, very humid. A little bit steep coming up there for an old guy like me. The rock was a bit slippy. I didn't enjoy it that much. So let's just see, let's test the camera here. Let's zoom in and see how close we get to the Wallace Monument. Well, the camera is clearly very capable of doing a lot of zooming. You can't argue with times 30 optical zoom. And of course it's best used on a day like today where there's very low wind speed. Wind speed sort of negligible, but probably 4-6 miles an hour, something like that. Once you start to go over maybe 10 miles an hour, you could be struggling if you zoom in too much, you get a little bit of camera shake. As I said earlier, there's a major design flaw with this camera, Panasonic Lumix TZ99. The outer ring that you would normally use, as it turns out, I don't actually need, I've got the camera set up, I don't need to use that ring around the lens, but when you have the camera attached to the tripod plate makes contact with that outer ring and makes it immovable. That's a major issue. You know, at the design stage, all I had to do was increase the height of the camera by 1 millimetre or 2, so that the outer ring wasn't so low towards the base of the camera. The way that I found around it was simply to use a tiny rubber O-ring, very thin, sort of 1/4 inch diameter interior around the sort of screw on my tripod plate, and that's enough just to lift it a little bit so that I can both move that outer ring if I wanted to, and also it leaves free the viewing screen, which you can swivel. And again, if you don't kind of use anything to lift the camera a little bit off the tripod plate, then it can also interfere with the movement of that viewing screen. I mean, the prime consideration here is whatever you do to kind of raise the camera a little bit off the tripod plate, what you don't want is your camera falling off and landing on the ground. You don't want that, so you want to make sure your camera is secure. The O-ring I'm using is a rubber, which is very, very thin, but just enough to lift it a little bit. That's a solution that I found. You might find a different solution. I actually bought a kind of little widgety thing for £7 out of Wex Photographers. It has a female socket in the bottom and a male socket, a male screw or bolt at the top, 1/4 inch. I thought, okay, I can screw one into the bottom of the camera, the other end into the tripod plate. As it turns out, I wasn't able to control the position of the camera on the plate. It was just nonsense. I was never going to use it again. Sometimes you've just got to try these things. As it turns out, I managed to leave it somewhere in Edinburgh. I don't know where. I got home the next day and I think, where have I left that thing? As I say, I would never have used it again anyway, but it's always annoying when you lose something like that. Initially, when using the camera, I was kind of confused by all the controls. The focus was jumping about all over the place, didn't know what to focus on. The exposure was doing the same, and also the white balance. The last video that I did, the one about the closes in Edinburgh, I had the focus and exposure locked. There's a way of doing that. But what I hadn't locked was the white balance. I had it on automatic white balance, so that I might have set a scene. As soon as I stepped in front of the camera to say a few bits and pieces, the white balance would change. It would go to a kind of warm look, and I'm thinking that I don't want that. Some people might think that's okay. I don't want that. So I've locked everything. I've locked the focus, the exposure, and the white balance. I've just set the white balance to a warm setting. It doesn't look warm to me, but it's not on automatic. It's not going to change from that setting. And when I get to the editing stage, I can fiddle about with colours anyway and make things warm if that's what I want. Always make things maybe a little bit warm, increase colours a wee bit, etc. But even the manual for this camera, the PDF, it's close to 300 pages long, and it's not very good. It tells you a lot, but it's very hard to find exactly what you want. I could see information about the AE and AF, automatic exposure, automatic focus, and the lock. But in trying to, it would just, eventually I found out how to assign both of those functions to one of the buttons, so you just press a button. But according to the instructions, it indicated that once it was all locked, some letters would come up on the screen. Well, I'm not seeing those letters. Indeed, when I do what I think is locking those two settings, I'm getting a green circle in the top right of the screen. Now, unless I've misread things, there's nowhere that it tells you that that's the sign that tells you you've locked exposure and focus. It's maybe some kind of setting that tells you you've effed things up, Ed. You've effed things up, mate. Reset the whole camera. But yeah, so I'm locking everything. Again, this is a wee bit of a test. And a test of the zoom. So it's often hard to know whether to use a kind of focus that focuses on a kind of slightly large area or just one very small area. I'm playing about with it. Hopefully at the end of today we'll get a video out of this. You'll get good views of the Wallace Monument and various other things. There are any number of areas in and around Stirling where you can get excellent views of the Wallace Monument. This is without question one of them. So I'll just have a drink of water and sit here for a while and soak up these stunning views. I think one of the things about having some of the settings locked, for example, I mean, if this is a kind of cloudy day, it's a bit changeable. The sun could be coming and going. And so that you might lock the exposure for a particular setting. The sun might disappear behind the clouds and all of a sudden your face or whatever is going a bit dark. I've got the face recognition on just now. I can see that I look a little bit dark from here. I think I should be all right. You don't always know till you get home and see these things on the big screen. So there is an argument for sometimes having an automatic exposure setting. And perhaps I should have had it on that sitting here, because there's nothing moving about quickly in the background that would cause the exposure and the focus to just go haywire. Very much a learning experience. Anyway, I hope as far as the camera is concerned, I've at least given you one bit of good advice as far as raising it a little bit off the tripod plate is concerned. And if you're watching this and you're a designer in Panasonic, you plonker.